president really, interestingly, always says, I don't blame them for ripping off America and our predecessors because they allowed it to happen. However, if you're going to be a good ally, we should have free and fair trade, especially with Canada. They should control their northern border. They should contribute their fair share to NATO. These are not draconian requests that we have here.
Well, first of all, I had the pleasure of getting to be at the meeting today between the President of the United States and the Prime Minister of Canada. What I witnessed was like watching a grandmaster in chess perform. President Trump.
Welcome, everybody, this morning to the morning broadcast. So much to discuss. The Trump administration, as you saw there, Stephen Miller, is doing some damage control after a humiliating last 24 hours for Trump, where, number one, he was told in front of the world as he sort of slouched by Prime Minister Mark Carney of Canada that no, your ambition to annex Canada is not going to come to fruition. Never, ever, ever. And Trump just sort of, well, never say never. And then Trump has continued to utter one of the most politically catastrophic phrases in American political history, as we'll look back at. And that's another thing that damage control is being done by his administration officials over the last few hours. So we have a lot to get into, including Biden breaking his silence and doing an interview with BBC about what's been going on. He gets asked about why he dropped out of the race. He gets asked about Trump's first 100 disastrous days. And Kanye, the Nazi West, went on Piers Morgan and stormed off, and even more. So thank you for being here to all of those joining live and people listening later when it's published as a podcast. We're now doing so many shows a day, I don't even know what to make of it, but I hope you're enjoying it. Let's start with the context for what Stephen Miller was talking about there, which is that no, it's not like watching a grandmaster, as Miller said, but instead a man who has been beating his chest, acting like he's going to have this expansionist legacy and take over Canada, sitting now next to the guy who really Trump is to credit or blame for getting elected in Canada because Mark Carney ran on an anti-Trump platform. And Carney says, nah, that's never happening.
They get along very well. They like each other a lot.
Well, if I may, as you know from real estate, there are some places that are never for sale.
That's true.
We're sitting in one right now, Buckingham Palace that you visited as well.
That's true.
And having met with the owners of Canada over the course of the campaign last several months, it's not for sale, won't be for sale ever. But the opportunity is in the partnership and what we can build together. And we have done that in the past. And part of that, as the president just said, is with respect to our own security. And my government is committed for a step change in our investment in Canadian security and our partnership. And I'll say this as well, that the president has revitalized international security, revitalized NATO, and us playing our full weight in NATO, and that will be part of it.
True. And they have, I must say, Canada is stepping up the military participation because Mark knew, they were low, and now they're stepping it up, and that's a very important thing. But never say never. Never say never.
Never say never, ever, ever. I never thought that I told you all about my little sister growing up. She would randomly say this phrase, you never know, but it would just kind of be one word. Never know. Never know. And it wouldn't apply to the situation at hand. Hey, Lily, could you go pick this? I don't know why as a kid she'd be picking something up. Lily, do you want to go with me to this event? You never know. Hey, what time are you and Mom getting back? You never know. What? Similar thing here. Never say never. As it pertains to taking over Canada, I say we go there. I think we should take the leap and go ahead and say never. So a humiliating moment for the U.S. president where Carney has to say that to his face. Carney then went on after to hold a little presser as we discussed. Again, we're just laying some of this contextual groundwork and said, I'm happy when Trump was going on about making us the 51st state, you couldn't hear what was being said in my mind. Before playing that, please do click the subscribe button. Thank you to all of you who have already joined us live. Kate, thank you for becoming a member by clicking the join button below. Michael, thank you for the super chat. Again, just that join button supports the work that we do, and I appreciate it greatly. Here's Mark Carney.
Good afternoon, Prime Minister Tonda McCharles, Toronto Star. I was watching your face through the meeting in the Oval Office, and I wondered what was going through your mind when the President talked about erasing the artificial border and how he criticized your predecessor and Madam Freeland.
Thank you for your question. I'm glad that you couldn't tell what was going through my mind as that was going through.
And then he goes on to reiterate what we already heard him say. One other clip from this Oval Office meeting that we already reviewed, where Trump is going on about this.
You had said that Canada should become the 51st state.
No. Well, I still believe that, but you know, it takes two to tango, right? But no, I do. I mean, I believe it would be a massive tax cut for the Canadian citizens. You get free military, you get tremendous medical cares and other things. There would be a lot of advantages, but it would be a massive tax cut. And it's also a beautiful, you know, as a real estate developer, you know, I'm a real estate developer at heart. When you get rid of that artificially drawn line, somebody drew that line many years ago with like a ruler, just a straight line right across the top of the country. When you look at that beautiful formation when it's together, I'm a very artistic person, but when I looked at that beauty, I said that's the way it was meant to be. But you know, I do feel it's much better for Canada, but we're not going to be discussing that.
And you saw how Carney responded already. Thank you to Grace Cardova Calber for becoming a member. I appreciate it so much. So you saw Miller having to come out after that and go, this is the art of the deal, and this is like watching a grandmaster play chess. As if any of us, as a side note, believe that Trump knows how to play chess. No, he doesn't. But the other phrase that I mentioned, and we have some interesting clips of his administration officials like Scott Besson trying to justify this, is Trump recently making this claim that what's everyone so fed up about? We'll just go ahead and get the girls who have $30 and they can have $2 instead this Christmas, as if that's the situation with anybody.
Said this week got a lot of attention. You were at your cabinet meeting. You said, quote, I'm going to quote what you said, maybe the children will have $2 instead of $30.
Yeah.
And maybe the $2 will cost a couple of bucks more than they would normally. Are you saying that your tariffs will cause some prices to go up?
No, I think the tariffs are going to be great for us because it's going to make us rich.
But you said some dolls are going to cost more. Isn't that an acknowledgement that some prices will go up?
I don't think a beautiful baby girl that's 11 years old needs to have 30 dolls. I think they can have 3 dolls or 4 dolls because what we were doing with China was just unbelievable. We had a trade deficit of hundreds.
And that's the clip where he goes on to say, and you don't need 250 pencils, they can have 5. Who are these magical young girls that he's talking about who have $30 and 250 pencils? Oh, probably the girls he grew up with. Yeah, the working class hero. And again, if you had the money to buy $30, but then Trump's policies make it to where that same money only affords you $2, that is a financial disparity that is going to have catastrophic impacts across your life as it pertains to things not relating to dolls. Now, we get to the damage control. Scott Besson goes, I don't understand why everyone's so upset at Trump for this. I think it's perfectly fair because you'll look at your girl and you'll say, stop crying. You're a little baby, stop crying. Trump is making you better. But Mom, why? I can't have my $30 or my $1 because you are going to make America great again. You never know.
The other thing, too, is this reporter behind me was quite snarky the other day when President Trump talked about
So snarky. So snarky and sassy, this reporter. You should have seen her, or him.
Me was quite snarky the other day when President Trump talked about the girl having two dolls. And he said, well, what? President didn't take the question, but he said, what would you tell that girl? I said, I would tell that young girl that you will have a better life than your parents, that you and your family, thanks to President Trump, can now be confident again that you will have a better life than your parents, which working class Americans had abandoned that idea.
Honey, why are you sad? I didn't get any dolls. I only got one ugly one. Wait. Stop crying, you spoiled brat. Did you not hear Mr. Trump and Mr. Besson? You don't need 30 dolls. But I don't have 30 dolls. I just have one, and it's ugly. Wow. You don't know what we did. Did you know that China has been ripping us off? Did you know that? Do you know the trade deficit with China? Huh? Sally? What's China? China! We've been ripped off for too long, Sally, and I'm sick and tired of your bull. I've never heard you use that word. Go to your room with your one pencil, Sally. Gosh. Trump's gonna make us great again, Sally! You spoiled brat! Maybe it works. I don't know. Maybe the kids will vibe with that. I don't know. Here is Scott Besson again. He's so... Do you know... Have y'all heard of this term, Riz? Have you heard of it? I just heard of it. And I think... I don't know a lot about it, but as I learn more, I come to think that there's sort of like... You put... All right, so imagine a piece of paper. Put Scott Besson on one side, and then just Riz on the other side, and then an equal sign. And I think that kind of gives you a sense of what that term means. Rachel Atwood, thank you so much for the super chat saying Besson always looks like he's about to sneeze.
So that, I like that personally. I think it's great and brilliant. But Wall Street, your old friends, hate it. They hate that kind of uncertainty. What do you say to them tonight, given President Trump's comments about, well, we don't have a deal. We don't have a deal. We'll survive.
Well, Laura, it's called, in game theory, it's called strategic uncertainty, what you're talking about. Nobody does it better than President Trump, and it can be unsettling for the markets. But why are they unsettled? Because they have a lack of information. President Trump has asymmetric information for what he's willing to do. We don't disclose it. And again, with President Trump, that the strategic uncertainty will make sure that we get the best deal possible. That's what's happening with the...
Mr. Treasury Secretary Scott, it seems that Trump is throwing a global, irrational, misunderstood, and tariff incoherent temper tantrum. What's going on? Oh, yes. So actually, what you call this in game theory is strategic uncertainty. And we have if you dive into the principle of the concept that Trump is dealing with, this is what Trump is thinking about on every single step that he takes. He's thinking about you're thinking about checkers. He's thinking about chess. He plays chess. Trust me, he's like a chess master. If you look 100, he's looking 100 years in the future. You're just looking 100 seconds in the future. And so he has more information than you do, and he can see it as global. And it's actually a part of his asymmetric information. He's doing a little bit of a strategic operation. Is he, Scott? Or is he just all over the place like a lunatic? I love that. Strategic uncertainty. It's a thing. Yeah, it is. It's a thing. It's not what Trump's doing. Trump's just confused. And I'm getting concerned. I don't know if this is going to shock y'all. I don't know if our leaders are getting ready to solve the problems they're creating, shockingly. Here's Scott Bessing getting asked about empty ships coming to the United States from China. And is that going to cause empty shelves? And Besson goes, no, I'm not concerned about that.
Christmas time is coming. There's going to be no toys for children. Trump is Grinch. And
no, there's going to be toys. There's just going to be like a 90% decrease in how many toys they have.
You all are going to get blamed for this. Was the political pressure and the consumer pressure building to an extent that critics are saying forced your hand?
Again, Laura, that I think a lot of American businesses have pre-positioned a lot of inventory. The trade deficit actually jumped because so many people bought in advance. And the companies that I've talked to have done that. So we are going to stick to our guns. But again, the U.S. and China have shared interest. They are the deficit country, though. They sell us about 4 times more than we sell them. So it would be.
And then we generate wealth in other ways so we can buy stuff across the world. We have a lot of consumer demand, so we buy a lot of stuff from other countries because we're richer than other countries. That's my new thing. I'm just gonna, whenever I don't feel like they're listening to me when I speak, I'm just gonna sing it. Wendy Hummel said, "Canadian here. I hope it's okay. I'm on here." Of course, you are so welcome. I'm sorry for the hostility from our leadership, but we don't all feel that way. A reminder: if you want to become a member to support the work we do in the most epic fashion and get a daily bonus show, you can do it by clicking the join button on YouTube if you're watching there. I'm tired of this. Can we move on? Do I have permission? All right, let's do it. Let's move on from that and get to Joe Biden. Joe Biden did an interview with BBC, and there's a lot that I want to talk about from this. And then, like I said, after this, we'll get to the Kanye West storming off of the Piers Morgan interview debacle. But this is Biden's first interview since leaving office, and in that sense, he's sort of breaking his silence. In another sense, he's speaking really, really close to silence because he's very quiet through a lot of the interview. But at least he's speaking out. Here we go.
That was what, just 50 years ago?
That's all.
Not long.
Yesterday.
Mr. President, thank you so much for talking to us.
Thanks for being here.
In this week of celebrations of VE Day, I've been looking back at a speech you made a year ago at Normandy for the 80th anniversary of D-Day. And you said, "They knew beyond any doubt there are things worth fighting and dying for." It's a message of sacrifice. Do you fear that that message is being forgotten in America right now?
I do fear a little bit. And I don't think it's been forgotten by the people. I think it's being forgotten by the leadership a little bit. Excuse my cough. The fact is that my father and mother's generation knew what was at stake. They knew that that democracy was literally hanging in the balance. Adolf Hitler, had he won, had there been no united Europe and united with the United States, the United States has never been able to avoid a war in Europe. And so one of the smartest things we did after World War II was we formed NATO because alliances provide security. And imagine had we not done that. So, and the other thing, I'd been to a landing on D-Day, a reenactment of that event, on the 80th earlier, and coming in one of those boats, those landing craft, and the thousands of ships were out there, and the tens of thousands.
All right, so then he gets into that, obviously an important subject. I will say, we got to figure out a solution for that cough. I feel like he's had that cough since the 90s. I feel like it's just been there perpetually. Let's get some salt water gargling, some cough drops, some Dayquil, some humidification whenever he's sleeping. Come on. Now, he started off a little bit more hot, right? He was projecting a little bit more. As the interview went on, it got a little bit more quiet, but a lot of this is in really, really important substance, right? Important substance. However the messaging comes across.
It's not America. The other day you said in a speech, nobody is king. Do you think he's behaving more like a monarch than a president?
Oh, I'd rather not comment. I'm not sure how he's behaving. He's not behaving like a Republican president.
You're being diplomatic, sir. What do you say about his 100 days? Now, he says, look at all these things I've achieved. I've closed the border. I've started to bring jobs back to the United States. I'm cutting government waste. He says he's delivering what people voted for.
Let me tell you, when I left office, we had created more jobs than any president in history of the United States in one term. Our economy was roaring. We're moving in a direction where the stock market was way up. We're in a situation where we were expanding our influence around the world in a positive way, increasing trade. We regained control of what we invented, the control of the future of computer chips, which control everything. We were in a situation where there was growth, opportunity, and we, for example, they told me remember Trump had this plan, he was gonna, rebuild America, increase our infrastructure. We had Infrastructure Week for 4 years, and nothing was built. I was able to convince the Congress and the American people to accept $1.3 trillion in economic growth.
So he says his 100 days is a triumph. What does President Biden say about Trump's first 100 days?
I'll let history judge that. I don't see anything that...
Me, pick me, ask me. Bad. It's been bad. Now, one thing, okay, so let me kind of give you some of my thoughts of the interview. I'll keep showing you clips, but someone sent a super chat saying, is Biden's cough a tick from his stutter? I don't think so. I don't know. But so there were some messaging problems as we've experienced, just kind of making the point concisely, succinctly, didn't come across in some of these moments. And then there were really impactful parts, and then he nailed it on like Trump's disastrous foreign policy, especially when it gets to Ukraine. We'll look at that. I think that the breakdown there of kind of Biden's legacy, barring the end, was fit, or Biden's achievements, barring the end debacle, was good. And it's funny that he just leaves it up to history for Trump's first 100 days, but I think that's him going, we know it's bad. But then what's about to come up, and these are where my criticisms come in. He gets asked, or he brings up that he thinks Republicans are waking up to how bad Trump is, like Republican leaders, and it just feels, well, I don't think we should still assume that one day they're going to wake up and go, oh, Trump's bad, actually. Like, they've really had a lot of opportunities. Do you remember when he did that whole coup thing and they were like, yeah, we love him still? I would give up on that whole, maybe one day Republicans will wake up. And then number two, he says he doesn't regret not dropping off the ticket earlier, even in retrospect. Come on. If you had known you were going to ultimately drop off, of course, ideally, you would have done it earlier so that Kamala could have run a full campaign or whatever. That I just don't get, and this comes up every time that decision is asked about. Why can't Democrats, or at least Biden, and maybe Kamala, I can't really think about, I guess I haven't seen her asked about this post the election loss, but they need to be just up front and go, that was a debacle. We made a mistake. We made it easier for Trump to win. That whole, you think that wasn't good, the fact that he dropped off last minute and then she had to put it all together, knowing that he was going to drop off, knowing in retrospect how bad the debate went, all that, we would have wanted that to all be figured out earlier. Of course, obviously. And just admit it. It's fine. It doesn't take away from the fact that you did a really good infrastructure thing. You did a good prescription drug prices thing. You did a good thing on the world stage with that. But it kind of does undermine the credibility of some of what you're saying if you can't just admit, yeah, that was a debacle. That was terrible. That really hurt us. It wasn't easy for Kamala, despite her raising a lot of money, to throw together a successful presidential campaign. Trump had been running since the second after the midterms, really before that, and she had to do it all in just a few months. All right, so let's listen more. I think this is coming up on the Republican part.
Triumphant.
And you see things to worry about. Do you, when you talk of a threat to democracy, worry about a threat to democracy here at home, here in the United States?
I'm less concerned about that than I was, because I think the Republican Party is waking up to what Trump is about.
You think?
Joe, Mr. President, with all due respect, what? You're less afraid of the threat to democracy right now? Right now in 2025? I love the optimism, but sometimes it's too much. Because of, let's listen again. Why are we less afraid of the threat to democracy now?
Less concerned about that than I was, because I think the Republican Party is waking up to what Trump is about.
No, Joe! Joe! The Republican Party that was recently, is she still the co-chair, Laura Trump? The Republican Party that seems more likely to nominate Don Jr. than Rubio or something in the next election. Now, if he may be referring to Republican voters, but when you say the Republican Party, it kind of sounds like you're saying the establishment. The establishment is dead, okay? Gone. R.I.P. Republican establishment of the past. It's gone. Please do click the subscribe button. Click the join button below if you appreciate this show. They're gonna, and I think there was a clip of Biden previously saying, I think they're gonna wake up, which is why he'll be able to work with them, which he did actually end up.
Trump is now.
Getting some bipartisan legislation done, but it wasn't like the Republican Party snapped out of Trumpism, which is what he said was going to happen before, which I get, because any rational person would think that too. But now we've seen enough. Let's not say the democracy threats maybe aren't as serious because the Republicans are going to wake up. They're asleep, okay? They're in a metaphorical coma, and I don't know what's going to wake them up out of it. Okay.
Saying, look, if you want peace, Ukraine is going to have to give up some territory. Some people think that is common sense to say that. Do you think it's not common sense? It's perhaps modern day appeasement?
It is modern day appeasement. Look, listen to what Putin said when he talked about going from Kyiv into Ukraine, and why. He believes it's part of Mother Russia. He believes in historical rights to Ukraine. He talks about Eastern Europe. What this man wants to do is reestablish the Warsaw Pact. He can't stand the fact that the Russian dictatorship that he runs, that the Soviet Union has collapsed. And anybody thinks he's going to stop is just foolish.
Yeah, I think that's a fair argument to make for sure. Now, I think in some of this, Biden got sort of rhetorically, communicatively discombobulated, as we've seen. It's just not the best messenger anymore. And I think we got to be real about that. And also, my gosh, I would much rather have however many verbal mishaps. I would rather have the worst possible assumption of Biden than what we're seeing now from Trump. Thank you, Luke. I appreciate that.
These are the kind of guys you like to smack in the ass.
That's right. You've been very tough on me. Listen, folks, we reestablished NATO. Trump's a bad guy. The idea that Trump would... He's best friends with Vladimir now. I've looked at Vladimir. I looked him in the face. Smacked him in the ass. No, I'm kidding. I said, don't do it. Don't do it, Vlad. He did it. I said, you're a bad guy. You're a gangster. Anyway.
I can hear your passion. I can hear your anxiety that the world is changing the way it has. And for a long time you believed, you said, I'm the man who can stop Donald Trump. And you did once. And in the end, you withdrew from that election campaign at the last minute. It's a question lots of people ask you, Mr. President. Did you leave it too late? Should you have withdrawn earlier, given someone else a bigger chance?
I don't.
All right, I have a lot to say about this. So let's go back a little bit. Let me read some beautiful people's comments. Nathan Jones said with a super chat, just wanted to thank you for your videos. I got out of the right-wing echo chamber because of your content. I appreciate what you do a lot. That is one of the best types of comments you could possibly leave, Nathan. Thank you so much. I appreciate you a ton. Gerald Longmire became a supporter by clicking the join button below. I appreciate that greatly. And LCM said, is it possible Biden's attempting to mitigate the fear/panic many Americans are feeling, or am I giving him too much credit? Yeah, I think that could be a part of it. You know, people, they don't want to hear from the former president him going, folks, we're screwed, right? Do you think that democracy can still survive? I've given up on democracy. Like, that would be disturbing. So, yeah, maybe he's trying to be overly optimistic. I just think saying the thing that's going to save us, I would say, listen, there are threats to democracy that are more real now than in generations. But, not maybe generate. Okay, in this generation, it's very huge threats, very historic threats. And here's what I'm hopeful about, though. People are waking up to that. People are motivated. Have you seen people at town halls? Have you seen Trump's lack of popularity in the polls? They are going to rise up electorally in future elections and teach the Republican Party a lesson forever. They're going to make the Republican Party regret ever speaking the name Trump. And independents and rational Republicans and Democrats are going to unite to do that. I am heartbroken we had to see Trump to unite like that. We had to see him in power do all these destructive things. I wish we had sided with Kamala, but since we didn't, now's our moment. And that makes me hopeful, more hopeful than ever, about the fate of the United States of America, right? That would be the answer, I think. Okay, let's listen.
So people ask you, Mr. President, did you leave it too late? Should you have withdrawn earlier, given someone else a bigger chance?
I don't think it would have mattered. We left at a time when we had a good candidate. She had fully funded, and what happened was, I had become what we had set out to do. No one thought we could do. And become so successful in our agenda, it was hard to say, no, I'm going to stop now. I meant what I said when I started, that I think I'm prepared to hand this to the next generation. It's a transition government. But things moved so quickly that it made it difficult to walk away, and it was
he could make a lot of money if he would do like ASMR nighttime, like Biden's bedtime podcast. That like, so listen, what we set out to do, it was, you're getting very tired.
Guess what? It grows the economy.
It grows the economy. And now you're going to go to sleep. And that's what you're going to do. I think it'd be good. Listen. Let's keep listening, but okay, his explanation of sort of, I really did intend on winning, beating Trump, and then handing the torch to the next generation. But we got caught up in the fact that we actually were being way more successful than people expected us to be, which is true. Post Biden / Harris losing to Trump, I'm obviously going to be more kind of pent up and critical of what the hell happened there. Because while it's people voting for Trump and Trump that's to blame for him now winning and doing all these things, you have to have some anger towards the people who lost to such a dangerous figure, for sure. But his argument is, you could sympathize with, I really intended on just winning and doing some good stuff and moving on. But then I started realizing, wait, we're doing a lot of really good stuff. Maybe Americans will see that and I should do another term. But we realized that but no. At the point that we're at now, it would have been so much better if he had clarity about what he was going to do. And wasn't sort of blinded by the fact that they were doing a lot of really good things and the fact that it felt like they could continue that longer. Because now they can't continue that longer because Trump's in the Oval Office.
It was a hard decision, but
regrets though?
No, I think it was the right decision. I think that it was just a difficult decision.
But you shouldn't have taken it earlier.
Well, I don't think so. I mean, I don't know how that would have made much difference.
I want to thank you.
You could literally hear a pin drop. That was so funny. No. Come on. If someone asks you, do you have any regrets after your side lost to Trump? The answer has to be yes. First and foremost, losing to Trump. Clearly, there's some things we did wrong. Now, was a big reason Trump won because Americans were misled about the cause of the real pain they were feeling. That was pandemic era that caused across the world anti-incumbent elections, right or left, rejecting incumbents because of justifiable anger, regardless of how the different people were handling it, because of price increases caused by pandemic conditions that Biden was actually overseeing the handling pretty effectively of. Yes, obviously. So can you blame that on Biden? No. But I think we needed a messenger. And I think at this point, it's time we admit he was a pretty good governor. He's good at governing, clearly. Whatever reports came out about how, they were scared to let him out after this time, and he would have really bad gaffes or get really sleepy at this time, or had mental fog at that time. Whatever was happening yielded pretty good results for those few years. But we needed a messenger. We need someone who could not just do that, but convince people of the fact that they were doing that. And that's what faltered. And Kamala Harris turned out not to be the best at that either, for different reasons. Clearly. And other Democrats advocating for the presidential ticket clearly weren't able to make that case effectively enough. Because I refuse to believe, otherwise I'd just be so depressed, I don't even know, that there was no world where Americans could have been convinced of what was true, which is that Trump's economic agenda was worse, the Democrats, whether it was Biden or Harris, that their economic agenda was better, and that they actually were overseeing pretty good progress. Not what I wish we could have seen if I were president, but pretty good. So, that's that. Just say yes, you have regrets, like, hey, losing to Trump. And it would have made a difference to let Kamala run a longer campaign, I do think. If it had been Kamala that he'd handed the torch to. And imagine if, that first 2 years of just legislative that Biden was doing, just a bunch of legislative wins whenever he had the House and the Senate. And then the midterms went pretty well. I think that's what gave him a lot of hope and convinced him to stay in the race, by the way. Because the midterms went pretty well for Democrats, despite usually it swinging the other direction. I think at that moment, if it had been like whoever the successor was going to be, if it was going to be Kamala, we're going to put all the attention now on them running. And we have 2 years to prove for the fact that we've been doing, effective. But a lot of people didn't believe that because of the on-the-ground conditions that people were misleading them about the cause of. So, all right, moving from that, Piers Morgan interviewed Ye. Don't call me Kanye, call me Ye. I'll respect your identification. I am a liberal after all, so I have to respect even with Nazis, I guess I have to call them Ye. But it's Kanye West is the person that we're referring to. He gets very mad when people call him by the name that everyone knew him by. Okay. But also probably this is funny, actually. This is actually funny if you think about it. Kanye, now that he's so right-wing, I don't even know what he is. Can you even call him? He's just Nazi. And you might think that if you don't keep up with the Kanye thing, he calls himself a Nazi now. We just heard, I guess, a song that he's going to release or something, and it's just like clips of it, and it's just him screaming Hail Hitler. So like Nazi, right? But now I'm totally forgetting what the point was. I'm just thinking about that song. It was so disturbing. It was like, and just this huge boom, 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 and then he just starts saying Hail Hitler. It's just, what the heck? This guy's deranged. So, oh yeah, but I'm sure Kanye is not that concerned whenever people transition about calling them the correct name. Like, he probably was like, oh, these liberals are too sensitive, you know? But then the second we don't call him Ye, he's like, respect me, call me Ye, I am Ye. To which every time I mention, oh, did you see what happened with Ye? They go, what? Ye like whoopee? Like, yay. No, the person formerly Kanye West. Oh, okay. So, I don't really know what Pierce thought he was going to get out of this, but he didn't get much, obviously, because Kanye he's not well. He's a Nazi. And normally it's going to be a little tough to have some sort of productive conversation with that.
2 years ago, I interviewed Kanye Ye West.
What name was that? Kanye?
2 years ago, I interviewed Kanye Ye West.
Oh, Pierce, we love it. All right, Kanye.
2 years ago, I interviewed Kanye Ye West on Uncensored after he'd made global headlines for anti-Semitic outbursts. Most outrageously, he tweeted that he wanted to go DEFCON 3 on Jewish people. It was a heated interview. It was a long interview. I held him to account. I told him his remarks were offensive. He caused many people a lot of pain. And he gave me some back, of course. He called me a Karen. Fair enough, I can take it. At least we had a mostly grown-up conversation. These constant tirades, Ye, against Jewish people.
Have you felt my pain yet? You haven't felt my pain. You don't want to feel my pain.
Well, no,
you don't hold You don't hold accountability to my pain. You're being a Karen.
Do you believe that you have any form of mental illness?
I believe that I suffered from exhaustion. I believe that I suffered from exhaustion. I suffered from being lied to constantly by the people around me, by my management, by my ex-wife.
Do you still love Kim?
I absolutely love. I'll love her for life.
That interview.
By the way, sorry, I ran off to do something. None of your business. Did I hear him say I suffer from exhaustion? Because I'm tired a lot. And I have never been like, gosh, I really need a cup of coffee and Hail Hitler. That's never, those things have never really gone together for me, okay? For me, it's never like, wow, I only got 2 hours and also, swastikas. It hasn't really, I haven't experienced that. Bizarre. We haven't gotten to the interview, but I do think it's important context. Gerald, thank you, saying he enjoys the show, and this is the first time he's caught a live stream. It's because we're trying a new thing. 10:30 a.m. Easter is when it streams live, but again, it stays up on the channel, so you can go watch it, and it gets posted as a podcast as a morning show, and then we publish our regular videos throughout the day that is kind of other content, and then we do a bonus show for our members. So, point is, I'm tired, but that didn't make me a Nazi, okay? But again, 10:30 Eastern time, we're doing these on weekdays, morning streams, because there's just so much to talk about. Jenny said, thank you for the super chat, Jenny. Let's keep going.
Lasted 2 hours in the end. We covered a lot of ground. There were moments of tension and moments, I think, of mutual understanding. Yeah, he got up and walked off at one point, but he had to think about what he wanted to say, and then he came back and he said it.
And we'll have the top lawyers like a Johnny Cochran, Robert Kardashian level legal.
Oh, apologies, everybody. Let's get that back hooked up. All right, let's just jump forward to when he actually brings on these two.
Isolated incident or some kind of episode. I wanted to know if he understood there are consequences for his words and whether he was genuinely a racist. Well, we now know it's just the tip of the iceberg. As far as the watching public is concerned, Ye has spiraled in both his personal life and his business life. Most recently, he's taken to posting endless, outrageous anti-Semitic slurs on X. He frequently professes his great love for Adolf Hitler. He poses in swastikas and KKK costumes. He says things like Jews were better as slaves and they should be whipped. We all know this because X has allowed him to carry on doing it to his 33 million followers. I've argued for a long time.
All right, this is taking forever. Let's just get to it, my goodness. Piers. Here it is.
Moment, it's fair to say the headlines are equally rarely positive. The rapper, producer, and fashion designer is currently working on a new album. Several new tracks were previewed on a recent...
I don't care. I know this is taking so long to get to the meat of it, but there's some... Can we not? I'm about to speak to Kanye or Ye West or Kanye West, and he's in the studio working on a new record, a new set of tracks he's going to drop on the public. Is that relevant right now? He's walking around in KKK and swastika merch, and he's selling swastika merch, and he's saying he loves Hitler. Do we need to enable this?
To live stream with his friend Sneeko, and both Sneeko and Ye join me now. Well, welcome to Uncensored. Ye, we haven't spoken for a while. How are you?
I'm doing good. I don't use the term West, the whole drop the slave name idea.
Okay, so we just call you Ye, yeah?
Yes, sir.
Okay, well, look, when I last interviewed you, we had a long conversation. And since then, a lot has happened in your life. And so I'm grateful for the opportunity to try and talk to you about some of this. How would you say your life is at the moment?
I mean, you see that view?
Yeah. Your life is good?
Well, judge it on the view as the answer to how my life is.
Hey, Kanye. Sorry. Yay. What? Who? What? Maybe don't be a Nazi. Would you care to comment? What is this? How are you? How are you doing? I do, in his private life, probably he should be going to somebody, I'm not a professional, but who can ask him those questions. But I don't know if a news guy needs to be wondering, how are you doing? How's your diet? I've heard that herbal tea helps.
Judge me by the view.
Well, the view is Mallorca. I've been there. It's a beautiful place. And for all intents and purposes, you seem very relaxed and happy. That is in direct contrast to your public image at the moment over the last couple of years, led by your ferocious... Well, hang on, let me finish the question. Led by your ferocious use of...
No, but I already disagree. It's not in contrast. There's so many people and artists that are championing the idea of someone being able to just express who they really are and have been able to go through the war of being attacked by the banks, being attacked, by the banks. That's the best way to put it, being attacked by the banks. And it's still...
And for him, that's just code for you know what. But can we... what are we doing? I'm trying to stand up for people's ability to express themselves. No. You have your ability. You're not in jail, as you're noticing, and you're on a big platform, strangely. You're not being persecuted. You get to express your views. You do. There are some countries where for already what he said would get you placed in jail, but not here. But guess what? We have a right to express ourselves as well. So if we want to not like you, if we want to not interview you, if we want to cancel, right? A bunch of people saying we don't like this person anymore. That's our free expression ability as well. You're not a victim because you started screaming Nazi stuff and people went,
Still be here with this view is, that's the win. So I think I'm in contrast to your contrast.
Okay, but the point I was going to make is that I watch what you put out on X. You got 32 million followers, so you're one of the most followed people.
See, wait. Now look right now. You're not going to take inches off my dick, bro. Like, how many followers do I have?
Well, how many is it?
I think you could do the study. You got a whole staff over there.
I thought it was 32 million. How many is it? You obviously know. 32
don't help them out. You know, they.
I'm told it's 33 million now. So congratulations. You're slightly bigger following than I thought.
No, congratulations. Your information is correct. You're not just some, dude trying to sub. I'm a gift, bro. You know what I mean? Why do all you people in media act like you haven't played my songs at your weddings or graduations or at funerals or when you...
I'm sure a lot of people did play your music at graduations and funerals.
What the hell was that?
Funerals. I'm trying to think of. I'm not that familiar with Kanye's music. Is that a funeral already? Okay, but whatever. Weddings. Well, okay, whatever. Yeah, all those events. I'm sure those songs were played. And then something crazy happened. You said you love Hitler. So people stopped liking you. That's all. We're all doing our right. You have a right to be a lunatic. We have a right to be mad about it.
Your child was born. You take somebody that's living like a Lennon, a Michael Jackson, and you just take all this time to just like that nuance right there. It's idiotic. It just shows the hate that you put out for people that put love. There's so much love in the art that I put out.
With all due respect, what are you talking about? I haven't said anything.
What are you talking about? It's dirty. Okay, now you're not taking accountability or responsibility.
You said it. You implied I haven't played your music. Of course I played your music.
No, sir. This is what you get for now. We can circle back when you can count.
Okay. Where's he gone, Sneeko?
That's it for Ye. But it's nice to meet you, Piers.
Where's he gone?
I think he's...
All right, then Piers and Sneeko talk, and it's just kind of whatever. So here's my thought. What were you hoping to get out of that, Piers? Because y'all know I'm fine with quote unquote platforming anyone as long as you handle it responsibly. But there's just we've seen a bazillion times. This is just yay. It feels so weird. This is yay now. You couldn't even get like 2 minutes into the interview without him leaving. And he does have sort of that God complex. I'm a gift. It's like, okay, you made music and you did fashion and you made really, really things that otherwise you could buy for like $2. You made it like $3,000. And apparently that's cool. So yeah, what we're supposed to all now bow at your feet? It's just so weird. People get so warped. Celebrity, we've talked about this in recent bonus shows. A reminder that to get the bonus show, you click the join button below. But how fame warps people. And yeah, he definitely believes he's God in his world. But there's obviously serious mental health things that are going on there too. But I think when someone starts screaming that they love Hitler, you can acknowledge that they should be dealing with the underlying mental health things and also just reject wholesale that Nazi stuff. And it's interesting because I bet Piers has cultivated now such a right-wing audience that I bet some of them will think that the stance they're supposed to have is, yeah, even if we disagree with what he's saying, like, yay, shouldn't be subjected to cancel culture. It's like, hey, maybe sometimes, and canceling, maybe sometimes us not liking someone for things they say is totally fine. Or businesses not wanting to associate with him, that's their right too. You can't force someone to associate with another brand. That's not how business deals work. But then he got all these business deals cut off and act like that was some deep state conspiracy against him because he was just expressing himself and that's so unfair. And look, I'm still rich. Yeah, obviously. How would you, just because you lost future money making opportunities, well, yeah, hopefully you still have money in the bank if you're at all have any financial sense. And that's not a victory. Like he's creating this world where he is victorious. I am still rich and I still have fans, even though I said Hail Hitler. Well, okay, what did you accomplish there? Except for now most people finding you repugnant. Nothing. Sad state of affairs there, for sure. All right, let's end on something really random. I came across this video, and it has two. Let just experience it how I experienced it. I've told you all before that because for the show we're always having to check in on right-wing influencers and sort of grab clips from right-wing accounts, and the Trump rapid response account, we have to check that a lot, use clips from his events there. So then Twitter suggests me a lot of right-wing stuff. This is one of them. You have some guy reacting to a lady talking on a podcast about cheating. And the lady's story is kind of wacky. But then I was like, who's this guy reacting? And he's even crazier. So it's crazy confluence of events.
I've been cheating on him for 3 years with his best friend. We had 2 kids, 3 and 6 years old. And he could have walked away. Should have walked away, could have. And when all this came out, and I hid it for 3 years in the church.
By the way, I love the dramatic music under this. I was cheating on him with his friends. We were having sex, so much sex, with his friends in the back of the church. In the dumpster, in the car. And it was better sex than I'd ever had with my husband. The way that I felt in that moment was like nothing I'd ever felt before. But I probably shouldn't have been doing that. All right.
When all of this came out, he looked at me and listen, a good therapist knows your feelings are valid and you can feel all of those things. He was mad. He was hurt. He was confused. He was disoriented. All those things were still true. None of that was underscored or not a part of his experience. But what was also a part of his experience, because he had been submitting and surrendering to the Lord so faithfully for so long, was he literally looked at me, and all I expected him to do was exactly what every man had done in my life, my dad, all these other men, was to leave. And instead, he looked at me and he said, Casey, I don't know how to not love you. That is when Jesus became my Lord. That is when I got grace for the first time in my life. I realized.
Okay, now this guy this clip comes across, it catches my eye because that's a funny story. But good for them, I guess, if they've worked it out. But this guy is just looking on, and then he has some things. He's like, oh,
that is what Jesus.
I wouldn't get myself, and I wouldn't be with a girl with tattoos like this.
Yeah, I'm sure girls are jumping all over you. Okay, so this comes from an account. So then I'm like, what is this? Oh, I see the link. The link. Woman propaganda. And this guy's just absolutely insane. He's saying that this woman in this video, because she's just hyping up her husband, and he goes like, ugh, at the wife saying that the husband cares for her. And he's like, ugh. Bro got groomed just because there's like a 7-year age gap or something. And he cooks. And this man hates it. These red pill accounts are getting crazy. Hyping up this lady, who's insane. At one point, he was talking about like your bloodline. There's like a black person, a white person. He's like, you're sacrificing your bloodline. So that's who this guy is. So a complete crazy person. But the video he was reacting to, fascinating story. You know, imagine if you're sitting with someone and you're like at church. I grew up in church. I got church coming out of my ears. And imagine you're sitting with somebody. How did you find Jesus? Tell me your story. And you're expecting, like, I was on a summer camp and then I felt tingles across my body, or my loved one, in passing away said this important thing, and then I love Jesus. How did you find Jesus? So I was cheating on my husband with like 4 guys. Kind of a funny beginning to a Jesus story, but if it led to good things, hopefully she feels bad because cheating is bad. But if they worked it out, good for them, right? That's all you can hope for. It's just love. We want love. Let's leave it on that note. I appreciate all of you so much. What a morning show. Have a great rest of your day. And I'll talk to you next time.